So skating in the heat isn't just going to increase the chances of your gooch sweat being caught on camera, it's also going to increase the chances of fatigue, of you just skating worse, and even semi-serious problems kicking off like dying. So when it gets hot outside, our bodies literally function differently. Our capacity to skate is going to completely change, but with the right tips and tricks, and if you're working alongside your body to help it function better when it is actually hot and sweaty outside, everything's just going to be better, mate. You're going to be skating better, you're going to recover faster, and you're going to avoid any potential serious issues kicking off. So let's get to it, mate. Alright, so why do we even need to do anything different when it gets hot outside? Well, it pretty much comes down to two main things. So we're trying to avoid dehydration, which is, I guess, the obvious. But number two, maybe the not so obvious, is an increase in your body temperature. So heat doesn't just come from old mate Fireball up there. Heat also heavily comes from inside of you as well. So for all of the movement that we do, all of that energy that's getting broken down to power the movement, only about 25% of it actually gets used for movement and for skating. The other 75% gets converted to heat. So you're literally heating up not just from the outside, but from the inside as well. Now the thing is, our bodies don't like to heat up at all. They like to stay within a very specific range of temperature, and they've got many different systems in place to make sure that happens. So one of the main cooling systems when we skate is actually sweat, which literally carries heat out of your body. But unless we're actually working alongside our bodies when we skate, more skating is going to mean more movement, which means more internal heat. That's then going to cause you to sweat more. But as you sweat more, there's then more chance of you dehydrating, and then you're losing the function of one of your body's main cooling systems. So this was shown pretty well in some research that was done on athletes, where scientists actually shoved thermometers into the rectal passageways, aka bumholes, of athletes when they were doing exercise, and they found that for those who weren't drinking any water, it only took about 45 minutes for their bodies to overheat into like the danger zone and for performance to be negatively affected, whereas for those athletes who were drinking water, basically didn't overheat into that danger zone and they maintained performance for much longer than 45 minutes. But at the end of the day, no one was really a winner, because even that second group was still, penetrated by a thermometer. And there's also so much other research out there showing that overheating and dehydration are going to negatively affect pretty much everything related to skating and how your body functions. So there are definitely things that we want to try and avoid if we want to basically just skate and feel as good as we could, not only in the moment, but long term as well. Now there are certain groups that are actually going to be at a higher risk of issues when it comes down to exercising in heat. You got humans below the age of 15, above the age of 65, squirrels below the age of 30, but also skaters as well, because we're naive enough into believing that our meaningless little bits of trickery on our little wooden toys are the most important things in the world. So we need to be aware that our obsession with getting tricks is going to really increase the chances of us just like pushing ourselves into the danger zone, often without even realizing, because we're just so in the zone, focused on our trick. So pretty much all the tips that I'm going to go over right now are going to fit into two main categories. Number one, basically just being turning down the heat and reducing the heat stress both externally and internally. And number two is just going to be staying hydrated. And really the goal of all of these different things that I'm about to go over now are pretty much around making sure that you can have the best session that you can possibly have when it's hot, but also reducing the damage of skating in the heat, so you actually don't have to recover so much, but you also avoid potentially serious issues, which we'll get to in a little bit. So first off, we want to reduce external heat. Now this is kind of self-explanatory. It's pretty much just avoiding anything that is gonna feel hot, really. So all of this shit that's on the screen right now, best thing is literally just to not skate when it's insanely hot and humid outside. So not going for sessions in the middle of the day, trying to go for sessions either in the morning or the evening when it's a little bit cooler. And if you do skate, try and go for spots that are shaded, or at least have some shade where you can like rest in between. Get frequent breaks in, sunscreen, and don't be that flange that wears a beanie in the summer. Really, just don't. Like, your clothing obviously is going to restrict the heat's ability to leave your body, so going for like lighter clothing is going to be better. No beanies, right? So we need to remember as well that we're heating up on the inside from just skating and moving as well. So the more intense our sessions are going to be, aka the more movement we're going to do, the more internal heat we're going to create. So reducing that internal heat is really just down to trying to move less. Now obviously skating is movement. You can't just like not move when you skate, but you can tweak your sessions to reduce it. So for example, it's probably not a good idea to go and film like a really intense Buzznet style line in the middle of the day, pushing shitloads, lots of tricks in a short amount of time, not much time in between the tricks. It's probably not a good idea to go for like a real heavy skate park session, for example, and just anything that feels like really, really intense. where you're doing a lot of movement in a short amount of time. So on the other hand, now this is probably going to sound weird, but it's actually probably better to go for like more heavy, like hammer style spots in the middle of the day, just because there's going to be more time in between tricks and you're going to be doing much less movement. And then obviously as well, like more chilled, lower intensity sessions as well. So when you're thinking about what spot you're going to go skate, just have a little think of how you actually need to skate at that spot and make your decision based on that. Maybe save those more intense spots for like the morning or the evening, and alongside that as well, just try and reduce any extra movement that you do in between the actual tricks that you're doing. So don't like run back up the stairs super intense. I know that's kind of hard to do when you're hyped, but try and limit that. Don't do a load of extra tricks in between the actual tricks that you care about. And one other extra little thing that's a little bit random, but nose breathing as well. So I've actually been implementing a lot of nose breathing when I've been out filming, and it helps you maintain a kind of like focus. So you're not like, you know, a nervous wreck and freaking out about the trick, which when you're in that state, you're much more likely to like run up the stairs, do a load of extra movement. So getting in some nose breathing isn't only potentially going to help you reduce how much movement you do, but it also has different cooling benefits as well. So for the hydration section, I'm just going to go straight into the tips. If you want to learn more about hydration and how Chris Haslam almost died from being dehydrated, check out the hydration video that I did. I'll put a link down in the description below. Straight into pre-session moistness, mate. So what you eat and drink before you skate is going to dictate how hydrated you are when you actually start your session. Obviously, it's better to start off at optimal hydration before you skate. Not excessive, mate. Optimal. So that's really just going to come down to what you're eating and drinking throughout the day. And for most people, that's just going to be down to having about 3 liters of fluid throughout the day and a normal amount of salt. So about 2 liters from drinks and about 1 liter from food. So cucumbers, mate, carrots, lettuce, melons, you know, any kind of these liquidy foods are going to give you some water as well. And just making sure you're getting a normal amount of salt throughout the day, because if you've ever been on the session, if you've ever, you know, like wiped your gooch, gave it a little lick, you'll know that you sweat out salt as well. So getting enough salt is an essential part of the hydration equation as well. And if you know you're going for a long session, you know it's going to be hot and humid, you might also benefit from getting about 250 to 500 ml of water about 30 to 60 minutes before you go skate. Maybe a little bit of extra sprinkling of salt in there as well. And a little bonus tip, there's something called pre-cooling that you can do as well, which is literally intentionally cooling your body down before you actually go skate. So how would you do that? Well, you could put on an ice vest, you could lick a frozen lamppost, but maybe a more practical method is literally just to drink like an icy drink, which has been shown to help maintain performance and also slow down how long it takes for you to actually get to that dangerous body temperature, because obviously you're starting at a cooler temperature. All right, mid-sesh hydration. So for sessions up to about 60 minutes long, you really don't need to do much at all, just focusing on hydrating before you skate and drinking water when you feel like it throughout the session as well. So for sessions that you know are going to be a decent amount longer than 60 minutes, you really need to make sure that you're staying on top of hydration from the beginning of the session. So in reality, this is probably going to apply for many sessions for most people. So during exercise, it's important to mention that there's actually a delay between how thirsty you are and how hydrated you are. So by the time you feel thirst, you've actually already hit about 2% dehydration, which is the point where performance and your physiology can start to be affected negatively. So you need to make sure that you're just drinking on a regular basis regardless of thirst. For most situations, a good go-to is going to be around about 200 to 300 ml every 15 minutes. And to be honest, it could also be like double that as well, because you can literally lose like 2 liters of sweat per hour when you're skating in the heat. You're losing a lot of juice, mate, and you need to replace that juice. So some extra little nuggets that are gonna help you stay hydrated when you're skating are salt, aka electrolytes, but also carbohydrates as well. Now, you can get them both from food, obviously. Salted trail mix, for example, maybe a little banana, something like that. But you could also have them all pre-mixed into a sports drink, which just makes it easier to just get it all in one pre-made little package. But if you're like, I don't want to support PepsiCo, don't worry, because I've actually done a little DIY skate sports drink recipe, which I'll put a link for down in the description below. So to bring all of that mid-sesh hydration knowledge into kind of one usable guideline, for every hour that you go skate, try and drink at least 1 liter of water plus about 500 ml of some kind of sports drink. Or if you prefer to not drink sports drinks and get it from real food, go for about 1.5 liters every hour, and say a banana, some trail mix for your salt. And if possible, try and get those drinks as cool as possible, just for an extra little bit of bodily cooling. So when it comes down to post-sesh hydration, it's pretty much just about trying to replace the fluids that we lost when we were skating. Now, you might be there like, mate, I don't give a shit. The session's over. Get me a beer. Well, calm down, Jimmy Smithers, all right? Because you can have your beer, but first, at least get some water in there first, like try and hydrate a little bit first, because the worse that you do at hydrating after your session, the bigger the chance of then starting your next session dehydrated, even skating worse in that session, or even, you know, more serious issues kicking off. A good go-to would be around about half a litre to a litre, and getting in some salty foods and carbs as well. So I think the biggest block to staying hydrated when we're out skating is literally just like not having access to the water. When you're filming a trick or when you're trying a trick that's really important to you, you don't give a shit about hydration, mate. You don't want to stop skating, stop the trick you're trying, especially if you're getting close to it, to then go get some water. Like, no one wants to do that. And most people probably aren't going to do that until they're at least in like a dangerous level. I wouldn't. Like, I'm making this video and I literally would not stop trying a trick unless it was like getting serious. But there are two easy things that you can do to reduce the chance of you actually being in that situation. Number one being just to take much more water than you think you need to the session. And number two as well is like put a bottle of water next to the place where you're starting your trick, starting your line, whatever it is. That is a game changer. I often have a little like stash of food, you know, I've got my raisins there, I've got my water bottle there, you know, I've got a little grill cooking up some sausages whilst the session's going off, you know. So having it there is just going to make you more likely to drink on a regular basis and just, you know, avoid all the shit that I've just gone over. So one other thing you can do to reduce the chances of all of this negative shit happening when you're skating in the heat is basically getting acclimatized to skating in the heat. So in more research where unfortunately more athletes were thermometrically penetrated, they showed that after about 12 days of progressive exercise in the heat, the athlete's bodies adapted to better handle that heat and to not basically suffer so much skating in the heat. So because this video is getting way too long, I'm going to put more information on how to do that up on the article that's going to go along with this video. Alright, so we've made it to the final section of the video. Now, this is potentially going to be the most boring bit of the video, but it is the most important, so don't click away, mate, alright? Because we're now going to cover all of those different serious, literally life-threatening issues that can occur from pushing your body too far in the heat. So we're starting off with the least serious, which is heat cramps, which is basically just cramping of your body when you're doing exercise. So this cramping comes about from basically just a drop in sodium levels and can be avoided by just making sure you're staying hydrated with salt and water before and during your sessions. So next up we got heat exhaustion. Now we're entering into the category of serious shit. So heat exhaustion typically comes from just an excessive drop in blood volume, basically from you just sweating out all of your blood basically, and your body basically just loses its number one tool to just function and to regulate temperature as well. But it isn't always accompanied with excessive body temperature like heat stroke, which we're going to get to next. So people often recover quickly from heat exhaustion by just getting them out of the heat quickly, getting them to drink cold fluids, trying to cool them down quickly, getting off any hot clothing, and actually lying down with your legs above your heart, which is going to promote blood flow as well. Alright, so next up on the extreme end of the spectrum, we've got heat stroke. Now this is a serious life-threatening issue that does need medical attention because it comes about from your body's cooling systems essentially failing and your body temperature just continues to rise into the danger zone. Now it's not always obvious if someone's got heat stroke or heat exhaustion, but some of the defining symptoms of heat stroke are a body temperature above 40 degrees, but also mental symptoms like confusion, disorientation, loss of consciousness, and potentially just a stopping of sweating as well. So there's pretty much a 100% success rate of people bouncing back from heat stroke if you're treated quickly by some kind of medical professional. They'll just try and cool you down as quickly as possible, probably chuck you in a bath of ice. So if you're noticing symptoms of any of those different heat illnesses, they're signs of your body being like, bruv, trick is not worth it, abort mission. And for each of these heat illnesses, they can get severe like pretty suddenly. So if you're noticing any of these symptoms, just like abort mission, chill, get out of the heat, drink some water. And with these heat kind of issues, it is best to just assume the worst. So if you don't know, seek medical advice and mate, save yourself. All right, finally we made it to the end. That was a long video. I'm literally sweating already. It's been that long. I've been sitting here for a while. So to summarize everything, basically just make sure that you're staying on top of hydration before, during and after your session with enough water, enough salt and carbohydrates if you're going on those long sessions. And when it's really hot and humid outside, just try and reduce the amount of movement, the amount of skating that you're doing. If you do end up going to skate, try and go for spots that don't require a lot of movement, that have at least got some shade, and save those more intense, heavy sessions for the morning and the evening when it's not so hot. That's pretty much it for this video. If you want to learn more about any of these different things and any of the points that I said were covered in that article, It's going to be up on thedailypush.com. I'll put a link for that down in the description below. And for everything else that's going to improve how you skate and how you feel when you skate, subscribe to the channel, mate. I put up lots of different things related to nutrition, session hacks, recovery, training, and everything you need to know to basically just, you know, be a legend in the game. So that's it. Until next time.